Well, good afternoon, listeners. Thank you for coming on to listen to Lament of Hope podcast or watch, depending on where you are. And we've just passed our 300th episode, which is super exciting. And I'm very grateful to the Lord that a couple years in, we're still here and we're still telling stories and people are still open to sharing about their lives. And today I'm getting to talk with Mike Janzen. He's a new face for me. I was presented with his music rather recently, and I was moved by the fact that his most recent album, which came out a couple weeks ago, and by the time this comes out, we're talking about beginning of June, he did an album called The End of Myself, and it's a very raw album, and he's a pianist as well as a singer, musician, songwriter. Um, and I was really blessed by his music, and also particularly by the title really struck me. And so I wanted to have him on to talk about it, to talk about his life and his passion for music and sharing about his struggles. And so that's who's on the podcast today. So Mike, thank you so much for joining us.
My pleasure. Thanks, Danielle, for having me. This is going to be fantastic. It's always great to meet new people.
Yeah, no, thank you. I mean, for your patience on that, because I know when you're an artist, I don't know, I feel like it's more comfortable if people know much about you, but we're kind of coming at this at a totally new angle, like I don't know much about you at all. But I want to start out to talk about the album because I was struck by the title of it, and I know a lot of artists will come out with music that they say is very raw and vulnerable and talks about their life. Is there anything particular about your album that you think makes it really distinct from other albums that may be very autobiographical or anything like that?
Yeah, I mean, I think I had a lot of fun making the new album. It started a long time ago, this album. About 10 years ago, I suffered a really serious head injury, concussion, that sort of knocked me out of life for a lot of years, where I thought I had to sort of give up music and give up creating. And it seemed like it happened right at the pinnacle of where I thought my career was going. And then I had to sort of like realize, oh, this could be it. And so the album starts sort of 10 years ago. I started writing songs. One of the first ones on the album is called Noah. And there was always this feeling in those early days, people would tell me, one day you're just going to get better. You're going to wake up and boom, you're completely fine again. And I kept thinking of Noah, being stuck on this boat with his family and like just waiting and hoping for some sign of getting back to life, right? Getting back the life that you had before. And I felt like that. I just felt like it was such a painful, sort of achy season where I was nauseous. I couldn't talk to people for a long, long time. I couldn't work. It was probably 3 or 4 years before I got back into stuff. And so it felt like I was just waiting for life to come back, but it just wouldn't come back. And so this album, some of the initial songs come out of that season. And then a bunch of the songs, probably 70% of them, come out of the last few years. Just thinking more about what my life looks like and maybe some of the parts of my life that I wish wouldn't always take over or dominate or be so self-centered. And so there's a lot of that in the album too, a lot of sort of self-reflection too.
How did the concussion happen? That it was, because 4 years is a really long time.
Yeah, I was getting up in the middle of the night and I just felt a little bit off. So I went to the washroom, grabbed some water, took 2 steps and everything went black. I just crumbled straight down into the tile floor with my face and passed out. And, 10, 15 seconds later, my wife was at my side and saying, "Hey, are you okay?" And I said, "I think I'm okay." And I stumbled back to bed. But the next day, I was looking around like outside and everything looked blurry. And my daughter's voice seemed like shards of glass and my computer screen just looked strange. So I phoned up a friend and I just said, like, "You've had lots of concussions. What do you think? And she said, yeah, you've got a concussion. And I said, like, we're talking days here, weeks? Like, I'm a self-employed musician. I got to pay the bills. She's like, yeah, could be like that the worst a couple weeks. So I was like, oh man, that sounds horrible. I don't want a couple weeks. But I realized after sort of 3-4 weeks, I was feeling worse and worse. Sort of just couldn't walk straight and nauseous all the time, and couldn't go outside and couldn't listen to music and couldn't watch anything and couldn't talk to people. And I realized, okay, things are getting worse and worse. So I went to the hospital, and they did all the usual scans, and nothing came back, which was good news, but also hard news because I didn't know now what
Right.
was wrong, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And they still didn't know what it was?
It was just a really hard hit to the head. They're still learning so much about concussions these days that lots of research is still pouring in. But it was a real roller coaster the next few months. I started getting a little bit of therapy that helped me like do eye exercises and practice like 15 to 20 seconds of piano a day and just try little things to get my balance back. But really it was really a bunch of years before, probably 4 or 5 before I was actually working again, just in time for the pandemic to hit. And then I was out for another few years with the pandemic, which felt quite familiar actually, because I was used to having to sort of be on an island and just be by myself a lot. So that felt actually quite normal. But and then the last few years, yeah, I've been more back to normal where I can actually do what I love to do. And I feel really fortunate that that's the case.
So when you were in the bathroom and you said you blacked out, I guess, so it was a concussion that just happened without you hitting anything?
Well, yeah, I hit my face right into the tile floor. So I did hit my head pretty hard, but I had a huge bruise on my chin. But what happens in a concussion is even if you hit a different part of your face or head, if it's a hard enough hit, everything starts shaking. And I've always described it. I live now in Toronto, a pretty big city where, there's lots of highways. And I always describe it like if you took a giant redwood tree from California and you just dropped it right in the middle of a highway from 500 feet up, all those nerve pathways, all the stuff in your brain that needs to communicate suddenly is like, doesn't know what to do. And so I think it was just a real hard hit, and everything got shook up, in my my ears, my eyes, and so the senses were especially messed up.
So I guess for me, I was like, how did you black out first, though, to hit yourself on the floor?
That's a good question. It's unanswered.
Yeah, I was like, that's scary.
Yeah, the best guess is like my stomach was off a bit, and the best guess is when you drink water really fast and you've just gotten up. There's a little nerve that you can hit that just sort of, it can happen. so it had never happened before, and it never has happened since. So it felt like a big fluke. But there was no fighting it. I mean, I went down literally a second to 2 seconds, from when I drank the water.
So tell me, for you, like, I'm encouraged. I think it's encouraging when you mention like the unknown of things because we like to know. And sometimes I've interviewed so many individuals, like even with chronic illness, who had to wait years and years to have some diagnosis, some answer to the pain they were going through. And so when they were wrestling with God about the unknowns, that was particularly difficult, was just not having an answer to something. So how did you grapple with it at first? Like, I know you mentioned you thought it'd be a couple weeks, then it turned into years, and then you have a pandemic come in. So even though you were starting to feel better, the whole world kind of went into a concussion mode and you couldn't really do anything. Like, what was your heart journey during that time?
Yeah, I didn't feel, when you're really injured or really sick, or really struggling through mental illness, sometimes I don't even think you can feel a whole lot. So I was just so dizzy and not feeling good. I didn't want to move.
Hmm.
So, and if I thought too much, like even did simple math problems, my brain would hurt. So there wasn't a lot of chance to really do much about it.
Hmm.
As the next months, progressed, I guess there was more time to think about it. A lot of like crying out and a lot of tears in that season. Because it's painful letting go. I kept saying it just hurts to be me. Anytime I would be at the dinner table or wanting to crack a joke, I just felt like if I did too much, the next few days would be really hard. And so I think sometimes you just hit survival mode where you don't have a lot of time to process or think or feel. And that's probably the way I was the first few months anyway.
And was it particularly hard, the music side of it, like not being able to create music or even listen to music? Was that particularly hard?
It was really devastating. I listened to music full time all the time. That's what I do every day. I remember about a month and a bit in talking to my concussion doctor, and he said, "You're gonna have to start like listening to some music now." I was like, "Are you serious?" And he said, "Yeah, you're gonna have to start slowly introducing it because that's what your brain. That's how you're built. You gotta start getting it back."
Hmm.
And I remember the first time putting the music on and just that overwhelming feeling of, oh my goodness, this is beautiful. And I remember there was a bunch of tears when I first heard music because I hadn't really listened for about a month. And just hearing it for the first time, it was such a gift back to me, even though it was painful and I couldn't last more than a few minutes at first. But it really was a gift to hear that part of my recovery would be reintroducing music again and playing music
Hmm.
again. Yeah.
What was the song you were listening to?
Well, I had to be careful. Like I'm a bit of a messed up musician, so like I trained classical. I was in a pop rock band for a long time, and I'm sort of studied a lot of jazz. So I wanted to get back into where I was before the concussion, which was jazz world. And so I put on a bunch of songs, but there was no chance that my brain could understand or comprehend all the layers of jazz. It
Hmm.
was far too busy, like far too much. And even like I sometimes do some worship leading and I put on some of those really like big anthems, and that didn't work at all because they got way too big. So I really had to search for gentle music, music that didn't do a whole lot, music that was really scaled back, simple. One of the first things I listened a lot to was Fernando Ortega.
Yes,
I just,
he's great.
oh, I just love his music, and it got me every one of those songs. I can't remember what album it was, but every one of those songs, just got me through a really hard time. And yeah, it was such a gift to be able to actually have something I could listen to that didn't overwhelm me.
Hmm. Could your wife or your kids like sing? And would that bother you if they sang to you?
Well, we just had our a newborn right when I hit my
Oh.
head a few months.
Newborn can't sing.
Hmm.
She
Well,
can
no,
cry.
I also had I also had a 6 year old. So I had a 6 year old, and we had a baby right after when I hit my head.
Oh.
So it was tricky with the baby because you know normally if you were feeling healthy, you might if the baby cries, you go to them, and I was like, I got to run away. So my wife was awesome. She just really carried all the hard work for months. I
Hmm.
did always say that my little baby June was like my therapy baby. So one thing I could do a lot of was sit still. So like if she was sleeping or not moving much, I could hold her, and that
Oh.
that was pretty special. Because newborns sleep a lot more. And my older daughter, Hadassah, her name is. It was a lot trickier because she had to suddenly deal with not having a dad. Because anytime she got too squirrely or fooled around too much or got too loud, I just couldn't really deal with it. I
Hmm.
tried to, but I just couldn't. And so in the next sort of year that followed, a lot of family members and friends would come by and take her like to the park. or out to play or painting, and just try to think of things to do with her that normally I might do.
How was that for you? Like, did you feel like, did you, like, on top of the fact that you couldn't play music, which I'm sure, or at least it was a super slow pace, so you're probably feeling pretty insecure in the fact that what you're most passionate about and what your income comes from, you can't really do.
Mm-hmm.
And then you can't really be supporting your wife with the new baby because you just physically can't. And then you can't be an active father for your daughter because you're sick. Um, was there ever a moment when all those realities hit and it was just very overwhelming to realize that, I mean, you literally, and I say this kindly, but I mean, like, you almost were a baby yourself. Like, you're having to
Mm-hmm.
go back to a lot of the basics and
Mm-hmm.
rest and sit and actually be immobile so that your brain can recover.
Mm-hmm.
Um, like, did that ever hit you? How did that must be especially hard, I would think, for a guy with especially the work aspect.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, no, it did hit hard. I mean, I think before the injury, I wouldn't say I really struggled, with those feelings of anxiety or hopelessness, despair, but definitely this head injury had all those things in spades. I just, it was just so painful to watch life go by, and having to sit on the sidelines.
Hmm.
And you would learn the lesson. I remember one of the first things that happened was my friend took my first gig that I couldn't do. He did the gig and then he sent me the check. And I remember feeling like I'm so helpless. I can't do anything. And yet people somehow keep taking care of me. Our
Hmm.
church community um, got on board. We had some people who said to me, until you're better, we are basically going to pay for your life. We're going to cover everything.
Wow.
And all we want you to do is rest and get better. And we would have lost our house and a lot more than that if it wasn't for so many people, lining up, dropping off meals, and financially helping us, and just practically doing little things. One of my good friends gave my wife the best Valentine's Day gift she ever got. To this day,
Oh,
unfortunately.
I'm sorry.
But yeah, it was. I mean, it was just so hard. I was a bit of, a go-getter, and I loved to work hard, and I loved what I did, and so to not be able to do any of that, I remember just thinking, okay, I may not play music again. I may not get this back.
Hmm.
But I can look around me and still try to see the things where hope exists. I can look at when my daughter brings me something to eat in the studio when I'm resting all day, or when someone does something kind, when someone takes care of something. I can try to be grateful, even though I'm lying on a couch most of the day, and that was hard. I mean, again, that was devastatingly hard at times.
Hmm.
But we were lucky too that we had a lot of people around us.
Can I ask if you, is there a particular memory that you have of, like, your daughter bringing you something or your wife coming to talk with you that was particularly encouraging at a specific moment?
Well, um, when I first met the concussion doctor and he gave me a few exercises, there was some hope there, because I was literally sitting in the basement with my eyes closed and like flashes of light going through my brain and just feeling awful. So when I actually had something to do during my days, that was a big gift. And I remember my 5-year-old daughter at the time, when I got home from the doctor, she wanted to know how it went. These are good questions. You got me thinking about all this again. But she wanted to know how it went, and I told her sort of some of the exercises that I had to do, and she said, "Okay, well, let's okay." And then a few hours later, she came and she showed me she had made this big chart,
Oh.
and she had her doctor's coat on. I don't know if it was a Doc McStuffins or some kind of doctor coat that she'd picked up. And she had this chart, and on one side there was all the things I'd have to do every day, and on the next chart there was the days of the week across the top. And for the next week, she would always check in with me, and she'd mark down how much I did. And I don't know, there was something about that was just so, you're worried when life hits hard. You're like, am I going to lose my family over this? Am I going to lose relationships? And then they surprise you, right? There's surprise at the bottom. And I think that's sort of what this album comes to, is that, we do come to the end of ourselves in life where we just hit the bottom sometimes. Sometimes it's through an injury. Sometimes it's just through things really not turning out the way we thought. Maybe we're single our whole lives. Maybe we're just depressed, or like things just are not working out, and we just come to that end. But the good news is at the end, God is there, and hope is present, and healing is present in different ways than maybe what we expected or what it looks like. And my daughter coming in and doing that for me just showed me, okay, it's going to be all right. People are going to stick around you. There's going to be little surprises of grace all the way through this journey that you just have to pay attention to.
Yeah, I think that's what's really, like, listening to you and hearing you, like, just you were able to embrace the smallest graces that in reality are much larger, but they're small when you're just functioning at your average. You're not really noticing these things. Like your daughter coming down and wanting to play doctor if you're working may have been very annoying at one point. But just the fact that she cared so much and was like, I want to be involved to help you so that I can be here and do something. And that made her feel like she could connect in that way, and like how the Lord was giving that to you. So you felt too like you had your progress, a chart progress, But can I ask, because after people go through something really traumatic like that, where their whole life changes for a really long time, do you find that you look back and you're like, okay, if this happens to me again, I know the Lord will be faithful and present? Or do you find it difficult where you're like, I don't know if I could ever go through something like that again? Like, how do you, because I've met some believers and individuals who it like gives them whole new fire for anything that's going to come up. And then for others, it discourages them. Even though they saw the Lord's grace, they worry so much about what will happen next, because if they could go through that and that was really bad, then what else could be down the pipe that could even be worse? How did you respond to that, you think?
I think the honest answer, it's a bit of both.
Yeah.
I think anytime you go through a really hard thing with a friend, maybe a death, a loss, grief, hard struggle, when you make it through the other side with a friend, you feel like, all right, there's a deep trust that's been cultivated. And in the future, when you go through things, there's that deep trust to rely on and to go back on. And I felt that really strongly with God being present. It was a bit of a surprise. It took me back in that I didn't expect that kind of super close feeling of God caring for you. So that goes with me the rest of my life, I think. I don't think that's going to change, and it's a gift I can take with me. But I am also, yes, like I'm careful when I walk around. I often have like a hand up if I know there's an open kitchen door, or if I'm walking down the stairs. I love sports and I love running around, so I'm coordinated enough, but I have hands out just in case, you know what I mean? And I think about when I open doors, and I think about when there's tree branches and I'm running, and, I'm thinking, don't ever let this happen again at all costs. So, that there is definitely that price to pay when you're out so many years, because you desperately don't want that to happen again. And I know concussions can get worse the more you have them. So I can't imagine it getting much worse, but I'm sure it can.
When was the first time you could actually spend like more than a few seconds on the piano or listening to music? Like, when was that like a very painful experience for your head, or did you feel like that was like you were like, okay, I just got through 2 minutes and I'm really like encouraged by this. I'm not dying
Hmm.
inside from hearing this.
Hmm. Well, I kept a sort of chart every day for 2 or 3 years of how much I could practice. So it started off with 20, 30 seconds, got up to like a few minutes, got up to 10 minutes, got up to 15 minutes. So I could see slowly there was this progress.
Hmm.
I thought I was good enough to start recording an album. So I thought one of my favorite albums all time is it's a jazz player named Keith Jarrett, and he was going through this really hard. He was exhausted all the time, and he recorded this album called The Melody at Night with You, and it's just he's a virtuosic, insane jazz player, but on this album he's restricted, severely restricted, and he just plays simple.
Hmm.
He hardly improvises. It's still pretty amazing, but for him it's completely scaled back.
Hmm.
So I thought, okay, if he was going through this, maybe I could also come up with an album using like old church hymns or something like that, some old melodies, arrange them a bit and record it. So I started working on that. And I got up to sort of 15, 20, 30 minutes, and I thought, I think it's enough to try recording this. I don't want to be totally better, so let's try it. And I phoned up, I have a sponsorship through Yamaha Canada. They dropped off a piano in my backyard, which is pretty funny because they had to roll this huge grand piano across a bunch of grass and bumps, and they got it in, they set it up. I went into the studio to start playing. I played a couple notes and I instantly got dizzy, and I was like, oh no, I have made a horrible mistake here. I had been practicing for the last few years on a keyboard with the volume way down, like
Oh.
at like maybe 5, 3 out of 10. And now playing this huge instrument, it was just like far too much for my brain.
Hmm.
So I started playing, went inside, said to my wife, I don't think I can do this. Maybe I should just ask them to pick it up. But slowly, every day I went into the studio, every day a little more, little more. By the end of 2 weeks, I think I played up to 3 hours in one day.
Wow.
Not continuous, but 3 hours, which for me was remarkable. Um, so it was just such a wild thing because I could see how the brain and music would actually start to heal me the more I did it. So yeah,
Hmm.
that began a bit of a journey where I started pushing a little harder, and it's a little bit. If you've ever gone surfing, you want to push hard enough, but you don't want to push too hard that the wave takes you. So you have to just push a bit. So I started really pushing the practicing anyway. And after 2 weeks, I had a whole album of songs and I put it out.
Is that the Psalms one? Because you've done one on Psalms, right?
Yes. And actually, the album was just instrumental. Um,
Hmm.
so it was just a bunch of like, yeah, songs, piano, solo piano. Um, and then after that, the next couple albums, 3 albums, were actually on the Psalms.
Okay. And the Psalms must. So tell me, because you couldn't. I'm guessing you couldn't read very much. Um.
Nope.
So how did you? How were you fed with scripture? Were you able to listen to it? Did someone read it to you? Did you take long periods where you were like, it was like silent prayer? Like that's the best you could do? What was that looking like? Because when I think, with the Psalms, I think it's become such a gift to so many people through hard times because it so viscerally describes your feelings and
Mm-hmm.
describes feeling in a way that is so deep, and
Mm-hmm.
it's like so much in the core, like in your stomach kind
Mm-hmm.
of emotion.
Mm-hmm.
um so how for you did you read the Psalms during that time, or was like that being read to you?
Well, right before I hit my head, a friend of mine had taken me out for lunch and said, "Hey, Mike, would you ever consider doing an album on the Psalms?"
Yeah.
And I said, I love the idea, but I just don't have time. I got too many things going on. And suddenly when I hit my head, I had nothing but time. Um, but you're right. It's very perceptive of you that I actually couldn't really read. So I started taking my phone, and I couldn't really look at it, but I could squint with one eye, and starting in Psalm 1, I could just like look at a couple of verses and then close my eyes and just try to think about them.
Oh, wow.
And so I would slowly do that. I would every day get up, look at a few verses of a psalm, sometimes highlight it, and then just think about it. And because I was a musician and I love writing music, I slowly started putting little melodies to these verses.
Hmm.
After a few years of doing that, I had over 3,000 voice memos on my phone. Not all that good, some were not that great, but I just slowly started doing that. And as I felt better, I did longer and longer. Eventually, after 3 years, 4 years, I could start reading a whole chapter and working at it that way. And out of that came all these little songs that I sent to some of my friends. And they were like, that one's good, that one's not good, that one's good. And slowly, music started to form. I started finishing songs. And then I was like, I wonder, these are deeply personal songs. And like you said, the book of Psalms is so good at showing emotion, our heartaches, our longings. And so I thought, well, they're deeply personal, but also in the Psalms, it was deeply personal, but shared with the community.
Mm-hmm. Hmm.
So somehow our sorrow and our grief can be shared. So I thought, why don't I invite a bunch of friends over and we'll sing these songs together, see if they're any good. So I did that. We had a bunch of people over at our house, and we sort of sputtered through 10 or 12 songs, and it just felt incredible and therapeutic to sing all these deeply moving things about reminding me that, I was loved through this season, reminding me about what God's love looks like to the brokenhearted. The Psalms are just great for that stuff, right? But I felt there was a lot of traction there, and out of that, I realized, okay, these are actually meant to be sung in groups. And so we went and rented out a retreat center, and at the retreat center, we recorded 4 or 5 videos. I was really like dizzy throughout, and probably thinking I should have never done this, but right when we released the first video, the pandemic hit. So I think God had some timing there. I was on an island for all those years, and suddenly the whole world was on an island and desperately needing the Psalms and connection with God and prayers and thoughts. So it was sort of neat how that all unfolded.
Was there a psalm that, because you know how the Bible talks about meditating on the Word of God, and many people have talked about, like, what does that mean? Like, does that mean I just read super slow? Or does that mean that I take a book that's full of like notes from a theologian and then like compare? Is that how I meditate? And so people have constantly kind of wrestled with, what does meditate actually mean? And if you had to look at a few verses and then think about them, like, you would have, I mean, so much time to just think about one verse and what it's saying. So is there a particular psalm that now means so much more, or that you were able to, like, in dissecting it that much, you gained more comfort from it than you had before?
I think a whole bunch of them. Before my injury, I would read the Psalms. I would often be led to think of others. And after my injury, I just saw myself on almost every page. Because instead of thinking about someone who was broken, I could feel I was broken. Or thinking of someone who was really struggling, with not knowing what their life was about, I was that person, right? So it totally changed and revolutionized how I saw the Psalms. One of the first ones that I ended up putting a melody to was Psalm 42, which is, by day the Lord directs his love, at night his song is with me. It actually starts off as the deer pants for the water, but there was lots of songs on that part, but I just had to like find one verse that I could handle. And people were all telling me, Mike, you got to like do whatever you can to meditate on scripture, to settle your brain down. So I picked that verse because it was short, and I could breathe in and breathe out, which is, using breath with prayer is sort of an interesting idea.
Yeah.
So I would breathe in the words, by day the Lord directs his love, and I try to think of all the people, our community, my family, my daughters, my wife, all the ways that God's love was coming to me. And then the second part I'd breathe out, which is, at night his song is with me. All that stored up stuff throughout the day, all the care and God providing in crazy ways, all that stuff could sort of carry me through the darkest times or the night. So yeah, that one was just a real simple song, sort of almost monk-like, that I would repeat thousands of times over those years.
I've talked to, like, even my counselor has encouraged that, because I think, again, there's a lot of individuals who would say, they're not comfortable with that because maybe it replicates yoga or whatever. There's that. But I really do believe that a lot of the aspects of what we would call secular psychology, or aspects of breathing, or however you want to put it, really are just ways that the Lord has allowed for our bodies to be used to help provide rest.
Totally.
And then when you pair it with scripture and you're renewing your mind that way, you're renewing the body and the mind at the same time, because the body's doing the processes that allow it to relax. And then when you're doing scripture, saying it, you're allowing your mind to reflect on something true. I've always found that I think that's something that I love. That why I believe Christianity is so beautiful is that nothing is just one or the other. It's a blend. Like, every aspect of your life involves Christ and it involves truth. And you don't have to compartmentalize things like, oh, this is when I do this is what this is when I do this. It's like, no, God is in everything I do because he made everything. And so my body, to be made whole or to gain rest, I can utilize things like deep breathing, or really connecting with feeling in my toes or my legs or whatever it is, so that I can ground myself physically, so that I can focus. But those are all gifts, because God did make your body to do those things when you can naturally discipline yourself to do them, So I think that's so cool, because I have wrestled with speaking with many believers who don't believe doing that is a good idea, because it's like you're going into the zone of secularity. And I'm like, but no, actually, it's just implementing something your body was designed to do originally.
Totally. And I think what our spidey sense sort of gets tingly about is maybe some of it, like the mindfulness thing is beautiful, but sometimes the thoughts are all about me.
Yes,
and they can be quite self-consuming. And yoga too, like, it's so good for the body to stretch and move and breathe and thank God for the gift of life put in you. And again, sometimes when you talk through it, it feels like it's all about me. So I think any of these disciplines that are wonderful, you can just take them and, whether it's through prayer, meditation, scripture, so many ways of just putting those prayers into those things. I love what you said on that. I think that's right on the money.
What is there something you do now that you did while having the concussion that, like, you've implemented that's like something permanent, like a discipline in your life, or just something that during that season it was very helpful, but you're like, I actually don't want to let this go even though my concussion is much better?
There's some things I definitely don't want to do again, like like keep track of everything I do every day for 3 years. That was no fun. Yeah, things that I've kept, I think I'm sometimes actually disappointed that some of the things that were so close to me for 4, 5, 6 years have sort of been put on the shelf a little bit at times, and that's disappointing. Some of the things you think you've learned so well, you didn't maybe learn them as well as you thought.
Yeah.
And that's always sobering. But I think just deep inside of me, there's definitely a sense of like the mornings beginning in prayer walking, just in quiet. There's just a real desire to do that. Whereas before I may have just put it off and said, I'll do it later. I just feel like I have to do it now, or I get to do it. Maybe get is a better word. So I think there's that part. And I think also just in my music in general, I just feel like it just counts. And not in the self-important way, but just in, I get to go out there and sing songs of hope for people. I get to resonate that Christ actually cares deeply for people, that God doesn't leave you alone in your darkness or in your struggle, but he's actually right there. That's where you find him. So I think just in general, in calling, I just feel a deep calling to this music, to singing hope for people.
Yeah. Well, one thing I noticed, like looking at your bio and your website and everything, and maybe I'm wrong here, but I noticed that you would say, I'm a musician, and then you would talk about how your faith was what was behind the artistry, but you didn't say, I'm a Christian artist. And I think that kind of struck me because, like we said earlier, so many things, like the Bible says that if anything is good, it comes from him ultimately. So if you're a musician, you're playing music that is honoring to him, then you're already doing something that glorifies him. And you're not making it Christian by being Christian.
Yeah.
But I did want to ask, like, there are so many Christian artists out there. There's so many artists who use the music talent that they have to bring glory to God and to bring messages of hope or encouragement, or just like even just trying to spur on a revival in people's hearts. Is it hard as a musician who has faith like you do to wrestle with the desire to be great in a human sense, and then also to write music that is meaningful? Because nowadays everything is so driven by numbers, even your job, and your performance is really valued by how many people say something about it. How do you wrestle with that? Because it's your passion, and so you have dreams of what you would like it to look like, but then it may not get to a level realistically of just someone else, just because of a certain connection or whatever it is. And being content with that, but know that the Lord still loves what you do, even if the favor isn't coming through like someone else is getting it. Like, how do you wrestle with that, especially if that's your job, like your profession?
Well, I think it is a big wrestle. Like, I don't want to be someone who has to look at numbers to evaluate, my worth, or if I'm allowed to do what I'm allowed to do based on, how many people are clicking on my Instagram or Spotify. And there's a real danger in that, I think. One of the songs on the album is called Poison in the Lights. And there's this message by Francis Chan. He starts off, he's at this conference, he gets up in front of people and he says, "There's a poison in the lights." And he says it a few more times. And then he begins to unravel what it means to be in front of people, and how even if you're in the church in front of people or singing music that's filled with faith in front of people, you're still in front of people. And there's always going to be a gravitation towards glorifying yourself or somehow getting something out of it for yourself. And I think this album has a lot of that kind of question on it. There's one song called "Make My Name Great." And it's all talking about what is greatness And am I actually seeking sort of self-revolving greatness, or am I actually seeking kingdom greatness? And it's an exploration into what does kingdom greatness actually look like, which is what it means to take a step back, to be at the back of the line, put people ahead of yourself, to look to the margins, lift those people up, to be led by young children, to serve instead of be served.
Yeah.
These are exactly what we believe that Jesus said, right? And yet the hardest things in the world to put into practice.
Yeah.
And I am so driven towards, succeeding, wanting my music to do better than it is. And so it's a real gut check to just say, who am I actually in this for? And where is it actually coming out of? My wife sometimes tells me when I'm bemoaning all this stuff, she's like, Mike, but you're not Niagara Falls. You're a trickling stream in the forest. And I'm like, that's not going to pay the bills. No. Niagara Falls is more impressive, right? Like there's more water and people will come see it, right? And a lot of people, and it's famous. And she's like, that's not what you're trying to do. You're actually trying to be that stream in the forest that people come and wander by it.
Yeah.
And maybe not many people, but a bunch of people. And they're somehow touched, and they can have the space, the quiet, the gentleness to recover. That's what you are. And I'm like, oh man, sometimes we don't want to hear the truth, but I think it's something definitely that, the title, The End of Myself, that's definitely something I'm wrestling through, is just how do I stay faithful to the music I'm trying to create, get it out there because I believe not in myself, but in what it's about, who it's about, but at the same time, totally take my hands off and be content with very few people sometimes hearing things, or be content with others doing well. These are the sort of gut checks I think that we have to look at.
Well, also, I like what you said too, because it's like if even the stream that is trickling in the forest is doing well, it's doing its job, and people who are passing by are still getting to see the beauty of it and be touched or refreshed by it. And a lot of times when you have those Niagara Falls moments in life, like they're really high and they were really great for that quick moment. But those stream moments in your life usually stay with you a while because you remember them because they were thought provoking. And I think that's something that I've just noticed, that any artist or author or creator that I've talked to who's doing something they really believe in and it's purposeful, but they're not doing it or for the end of reaching a certain point, or for the fact it's going against the grain in that it is glorifying God, or it's doing something that blatantly isn't going to get to the level of like something super general where everybody can agree and there's not really a certain moment where anyone's going to go, it's the meaningfulness of it though is so deep that if someone does come across it, it really does impact them if that is what they're looking for. So I think that's, I don't know, I like it. It's funny how your wife says it so bluntly. I feel like we would be good friends because I've done things like that. I've said blunt things like that to my husband. He says blunt things back, so that's good. But it is like those streams really is the Christian life. You don't get too many Niagara Fall moments,
Yeah. And you do need, when you're going through the hard things of life, we often need the gentle things, right? To help bring us
keep
back.
Going.
Yeah. And so it makes sense in some ways that since my injury, especially, I feel just led into that area, singing songs that people just who feel really discarded or despair, that they would resonate with it somehow. That means a lot to me for sure.
Yeah. Well, I'm so grateful. Thank you so much for talking to me. I've been blessed by this, and your story and getting to see how the Lord has worked through like a really bad concussion, which I feel like we don't talk about very much.
Yeah.
People go through concussions, but I've never asked anyone, like how did this impact your walk with the Lord or like life? And I think because it's like when we say concussion, it's just so normal, but if you go through it, then you realize it's a totally different thing than just concussion, the word.
Yeah.
But I'm very grateful for your time and for this album and your heart behind it, and so I'm very hopeful and prayerful that the Lord will bless it and it'll encourage people the way that it needs to encourage people. And grateful for your perseverance, for all the dizziness and the hard stuff.
Well, thank you. It's great chatting with you, and I love your podcast, like Lament of Hope. Just the combination of those words.
Yeah.
Just giving space, right, to talk about the hard things, but also framing them in hope, which I think, like any good psalm, that's what they do, right? They get to the guts and the ache of things, and yet they tell you there's a huge hope right around the corner. So, yeah, no, I really appreciate the thoughtful conversation and questions.
Yeah, thank you so much. So appreciate you doing this.
You're very welcome.
All right, have a good day.
Okay, thanks.
Bye.